Welcome to this hearing by Zoom of the Local Historic District Commission. Our purpose is to aid property owners in the town in preserving and protecting the distinctive characteristics and architecture of buildings and places significant in the history of Amherst. This meeting will be conducted by remote means. Members of the public who wish to access the meeting may do so via Zoom or by telephone. We want to welcome Walker Powell to her new position. And I think we've got some other new members perhaps to introduce. So why don't we go around the room once, and I'm going to do roll call. And if you just also say who you are and where you're from when I call your name. So Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Miller and I'm the Realtor representative here.
Bruce.
Bruce Coldham. I'm the representative architect on the commission. I've actually been that for quite a while, and if anybody wants to take my place, I think I'm ready. But I'm here and will stay until replaced.
I think you might be here for the duration. Betty.
Hi, I'm Betty Sharp. I'm resident of Amherst, and I work at Historic Northampton in Northampton.
Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve Bloom, and I'm just a resident serving.
Rita.
Rita Wilcox, and I'm also a resident serving.
I'm Nancy Ratner. I'm the chair of this commission. Thomas.
Hi, I'm an architect working on behalf of Amherst College on the Plimpton House.
Okay, and Seth.
Hi, I'm Seth. I'm the assistant director of planning, design, and construction for Amherst College.
Okay, Anna.
Anna Cook, Integrity Construction. We're presenting for 94 Leslie Street, and this is Nicole Wetherell, my designer.
Okay, and Karen.
Karen Winter. I live on Sunset Avenue. I live on Elm Street, and I'm sorry I joined a little late, so I'm hoping I'm saying the right thing.
Yes. So welcome to everybody. Not all of us are members of the commission. Some of you are here to represent your projects. So maybe we can get started with our meeting. And so we've got a couple of different projects here to go through today. Oops, I've lost my page. Here it is. So we can start with updates from the town planning staff. Sorry, no, I'm sorry, this is the public hearing. We should start with Leslie Street, 94 Leslie Street.
All right. My name is Nicole Wetherell. I'll be presenting for 94 Leslie Street today. And can you see the document that I'm sharing?
No, not yet.
Double click.
There it is.
Yep,
we got it. All right. We'll be presenting several different documents to you today. I just wanted to show this one first to kind of wrap your heads around it. The main crux of the work in this project is removing an existing L off of the back of the Victorian home and replacing it with a new one. They will look very similar from the public ways. We're going to match materials, use the same roof pitch, things like that. The size and shape of the addition will change slightly, but most of the changes will be more visible from the backyard of the home. So now I'd like to open up our elevations and show you some of our material choices in a little bit more detail.
Do you mind, before you go into the material, are you losing a chimney, or are the chimneys going to remain the same?
One chimney is going to be lost.
Okay.
Good eye.
So scrolling down to the elevations.
Sorry, this seems to be taking a minute to load here.
Yeah. Well, you know what? While we're waiting for it to load, no need to waste anyone's time. I'll just start going through some things verbally that you don't really need the elevations to know about. In terms of materials, the existing house has a prime cedar siding, clapboards, and a mudboard. We are planning to replicate that detail on the new L in the back. Same reveal, same sizes, and same prime cedar material painted in a color to match the house. We'll also be replicating the foundation detail. The current foundation is brick above and stone below. What we're going to do instead is we're going to use concrete to build the foundation, but we will be including a brick ledge with standard brick. And you can see that here on the elevation. Can you all see it? Great. So we're just going to be including this brick ledge with the standard brick so that, you know, all the visible sections, it looks the same as the existing foundation. Other details that we're going to match, you can see here we've got the roof pitches. Those are designed to match the existing house. The roof is set lower than the existing house roof. One of the reasons for this is because we have a gable bracket back here that we don't want to disturb. So we set the roof a little bit lower. We're not going to disturb the gable bracket, not going to disturb this frieze, but we're still going to be able to replicate that steep roof pitch while getting enough head height on this second floor. Another detail of the roof that we will be replicating is this flare at the base. As you can see on the existing house, most of the roof has a very steep pitch, but then it suddenly gets shallow at this deep overhang. This was a detail that was pointed out to us when we were getting our demo historic permission, and so we've added it to the plans in response to that feedback. In terms of roofing, we are also planning to use roofing materials that match the existing house. The house currently has, you know, your standard 30-year architectural shingles, so we're going to replicate that detail on this rear L. And we are also going to replicate the frieze detail that currently exists. There is a very detailed frieze on the main house that currently exists. It has panels, it has these brackets on there, but the back L that we're going to be getting rid of has a simplified frieze detail. We don't know why the original builders did this, but since this difference between the main house and the L does exist on the current house, it's something that we're planning to replicate when we rebuild. I do also want to open up another document to show some of the literature that some of the product samples that we're planning to use. So we will need to do some fence modification. We're planning to replicate this existing fence as best we can. These are the shingles that we're planning to use, IKO Cambridge Dual Gray. This is just the color that we found that most closely matched the existing roofing. For decking, we'll be using 5/4 by 6 cedar.
And that's just a photo from a past job, not
Yeah.
this particular project.
Thank you, Anna.
We're still seeing the elevation.
My apologies. Thank you for
screen.
pointing that out. All right, can we see the pictures of the decking and the railings now?
Yes.
Awesome. So yes, this is a sample image of what 5/4 by 6 cedar decking looked like on one of our previous projects. We would not be using this railing detail. We will instead be using primed pine railings with 4x4 newel posts, 2x2 balusters, and 2x4 vertical top and bottom rails with a 1x6 top cap. This would be seen primarily off the back of the house, but there's also a side porch that can be seen a little bit from Leslie Street that would have this same detail. Finally, we do also have some new exterior lighting proposed. This is a light that we found that closely matches the existing light on the front of the house. So that's why we went with it. Another thing that we're going to be doing, obviously, is we are putting some new doors on. There will be 2 doors going out of the new back L. This one is going to be a sliding glass door, and it faces the backyard, can't be seen from any public way. And I will go back to the elevations and show the other door. This door is a 6-panel solid door that can also only be seen from the backyard and not from a public way. So they're both on the back wall, can't be seen from the road. Another big part of this project is working on the windows. When we originally submitted plans for this project, our plan was to put new storm windows on all of the existing windows and just put new windows in the back addition. But we are now seeking permission to either put storm windows on all of the existing windows in the house or replace those windows with new windows. And the reason that we'd like permission to do either of these things is because when we started looking at the pricing for new storm windows that are color matched to the existing house, we discovered that they are actually pretty expensive now. So we figured if we're going to be spending, more money, then why not go with a new window that is going to be, insulated with low E argon gas and is going to be, better flashed. And so the new windows that we would be using would be Marvin Elevates. And we are planning to replicate this existing 2/2 grill detail on all of the windows except for one front window. This front window has a 2x5 grill on the 2 casements. And so we would replicate that detail just on this one. All the other windows are 2/2. Those grill patterns, those would be 7/8 simulated divided lights with a spacer in between. And we would leave the existing head casings on all of these windows in place. Right now, there's a very elaborate Victorian head casing on all of the windows with these corbels. We don't want to touch those, so what we're going to do is we're going to replace the existing windows with new construction windows that are in the same size, and any slight difference in size between the existing windows and the new windows will be covered by just replacing this existing flat trim with new flat trim to match. These 2 windows up in the dormer up here are the only ones that we are not thinking of replacing at all. That's because they have this, complicated, not quite arch top, but angled, triangular top. And that would be very tricky to get a new window in. So instead, the plan for those is that even if we are approved to replace all of the other windows in the house, we will just keep these windows and cover them up with storms. And I will pull up the cut sheet for the storms and share that with you.
What we realized in our research was that new storms will address some of the energy performance, but it doesn't address all the other issues with the original windows. Several of them aren't operable, painted shut, broken sash, sash weights lost. So once we realized that the expense of going with custom colored storms was putting us in the kind of ballpark of new construction windows, we realized it'd be better worth the client's investment to solve the window problem, the whole way. But we're still discussing that now, so that's why we're hoping for approval on both options.
Are the replacement windows wood or vinyl?
They would be Marvin Elevates, so they have a wood interior and an Ultrex exterior.
So they're like a wood frame clad window.
What's Ultrex? Is that
It's their
what is it?
proprietary, it's essentially a type of vinyl. It's their proprietary product. So it's pultruded and instead of extruded, but essentially it looks like, hardened plastic.
Bruce?
It's not vinyl. It's resin reinforced fiberglass. It's a pultruded fiberglass material, and it's thoroughly excellent. And I have no problem with it, but we should correct the record that suggested that it might be vinyl.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
While we're on the windows, I had a specific question. When you talked about the window size and the fact that the windows that you intend to purchase aren't the same size as the openings of the windows that are there now, and you talked about adjusting the flat frame. Could you give me an example of how much needs to be adjusted or how much extra width you're going to add to the flat frame around it?
That's a great question. Most of the windows are actually within a 1/2 inch of a standard Marvin size. So that's the kind of difference we're talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there other questions? this is a beautiful house, and it looks to me like you're doing a wonderful job of taking care of it. So
Thank you.
I'm pleased with everything you've told us. Does anybody, Bruce, you have something to say?
Yes, I mean, this is one of the easiest lifts that I've seen in the 7 or more years that I've been on this commission. I had a bunch of questions going in, and they progressively got resolved. The only, I mean, it's none of our business, and I'm happy to move that we grant a certificate of appropriateness. I noticed that you're matching the existing wood with new wood, and I know this is what you would need to do if you were getting money from the Massachusetts Historic Commission's renovation and restoration support program. But it's not going to hold paint as long, I don't think, and fiber reinforced cement and so forth, those kind of products, and the Boral type products are essentially indistinguishable from clapboard from anything from a few inches out. And so I often have encouraged people to think about using these more modern equivalents simply because they run out longer in terms of reducing maintenance and so forth. And so I can see that this house will need painting faster in the future. If it was Amherst College, I might not care because they have a maintenance program that suggests that this can be taken care of. But I think this is a private house, and from my point of view, I would be encouraged to make sure that maintenance was made easier rather than more difficult in the future.
Is that
But
the
that's
kind of
just a comment.
approval? Yeah, could we have approval on that both ways? We'd be happy to discuss it with the owners. They both have a strong history background, and so I don't think we actually even explored hardy or any kind of composite because they wanted to stay true to the house. But if they were open to it, is that the kind of thing we could have approval on both options at this stage?
Well, I know at North Amherst, when I am involved with the restoration of the farmhouse for the North Amherst Community Farm, and I was very concerned that the very slim maintenance budgets that farmers have, that we didn't commit them to a more than necessary maintenance budget. So we walked away from a state grant opportunity in order to make it to maintain a manageable maintenance program. So you could think about that. I'm happy to move for approval for what are we talking about? Appropriateness, a certificate of appropriateness either way, as with the windows. If you wanted to have that flexibility for the reasons that I suggested, but it's really none of our business. Well, it is our business in the sense that I'm looking forward 10 years and thinking, you know, if the house changes hands, things happen and so forth, that maintaining a more durable skin on this house is probably in the interests of the town.
Sure.
But it's
No,
a very small interest.
No, I mean, and I appreciate your compliments earlier, but it really all credits to the homeowner here. They're going to be good stewards of the house, and you know, all these details came, you know, together as a group from all of us.
Yeah, but they're not going to live 100 years, and the house is.
I don't know.
None of us are.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second to that motion?
I second.
Thank you. Karen?
Does the motion include the flexibility that Bruce is mentioning, that they change from
Yes,
the wood? Yes, it does.
I think
Okay.
Bruce has allowed that they could go in either direction.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
And that also gives flexibility on at least one other matter that they'd asked for, and I have no problem with that.
Great, thank you.
Is there further discussion about the motion, or are we ready to vote?
I just want to say that I think they've done a fabulous job. Thank you.
I agree.
I agree. It's going to be
I agree.
beautiful when you're done.
Thank you.
Oh,
We're
all right.
really excited. We'll pass that on to the homeowners. They're the
Mhm.
best.
Very attractive.
It's a
Uh,
beautiful house too.
Mhm.
Let's take a vote then. Nicole,
Yes.
Greta,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
wait a minute. Bruce,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
All right, I think we have approved your certificate of appropriateness with a little bit of flexibility. Thank you very much for your nice presentation. It was very thorough and easy for us to approve this project because of that.
Oh, perfect. Oh, thank you everybody for your time. We appreciate it.
We were originally going to have another project on Leslie Street, but is that still coming?
Yes, 82 Leslie Street. I believe that Seth and Tom are here for that.
Okay. Would you like, Seth and Tom, would you like to present your project?
Absolutely. Okay.
If I might, Madam Chair, just for the record, I usually do this when Tom appears. Tom is the principal of. Is someone talking in the background? Is that a? Should I talk over it? Sounds like I should. Tom is the principal of C&H, which is if it's stretched out, Coldham and Hartman, and my business here is to simply say that I have no interest in this business other than a familial one with the business that I founded. So just for the record, we can proceed. I have no conflict in this matter.
Thank you, Bruce.
And Bruce, you know, our sign is still up at the old office.
Haven't got it yet. Is that what you're saying?
No, don't get it. We'll leave it there.
Okay, I will.
Send all the vendors there. Well, thank you for having us today. I think this will be relatively easy. It's a pleasure to work for Amherst College. I've been before the commission many times. We are planning a project at Plimpton House, which will occur this summer. The work includes primarily interior scope modifications, a window replacement, which has already been granted administrative approval by the building commissioner. And as a result of that process, he asked us to present a few minor items to the exterior that'll be altered this summer. This is the existing building, which for reference is the street view. I want to bring your attention, it's getting a little fuzzy, but right here to the right of the main entrance is an existing bathroom exhaust fan. We are going to be adding 2 more of those for dryers. We're relocating the laundry from the basement up to the first floor along with the kitchen so that the common spaces will be on the accessible level. Pardon me. We forwarded to you a drawing which is on your screen now. And so there are a couple of elements that I want to show you here. So there's the front door. That's the existing exhaust vent. We're locating 2 nearly identical to that in size, just directly to the right at the same elevation. Interestingly, if we were only adding 1 dryer vent, we would not have to appear before you. If we add 2, we need to appear before you. Those are the rules as written. So additionally, beyond those dryer exhaust vents, which for reference look like that, right? Typical dryer exhaust vents. We have a kitchen exhaust vent that we're also adding. That is being added onto the east side of the building. And I honestly don't think you would be able to see it from a public way, but we included it. It's about a 8 or 9 inch vent or something like that. This is a rendering of what it would look like. It's tucked up underneath in that corner. So pretty innocuous. I don't think it's going to be something anyone will notice, even if you tried. the last piece of what we're presenting to you is a intake structure for boiler combustion air and for makeup air for the air handler that we need to put in to balance the exhaust ventilation. And so just for reference, what we have currently is there's a window well that the combustion air is down in that well. And we're going to bring makeup air through that well into the mechanical room in the basement just below. So we had two options. We do all this below the well, which is not a good practice because it would be musty air, makeup air, leaves collect in there and so forth and so on. So what we're proposing is that we actually build a structure that, and for reference, this is the rendering I'm about to show you. This is what you would see. So there's granite walls on the side. There's granite stone corners going up the building. There's these granite details and so forth. And so our concept is that we essentially build a little box of granite that has a top, it has a front side, that's all you would see. And then on each side of that would be intake louvers. On the left, combustion air, on the right, makeup air for the air handler. And that is the structure right there being rendered. So from the view of the street, which this shot is actually taken from, that's essentially what you would see. So mixing with the materials that are there, making the best of a mechanical situation. And I think it's fairly straightforward and simple. So with that, any questions?
Bruce?
Oh, Tom, what's the color? Do you the attachments you showed them being white? Would they be white or would they be gray or would they be maybe red? I'm thinking of the exhaust, the kitchen and dryer exhaust. So
I don't think I'd want to make them painted because they'll peel.
Yeah.
But this is a rendering. We took the existing one that's there and we photoshopped it. So we would propose that they would be metal.
Okay. And it looks like they'd be gray.
Yeah, they'll gray out over time. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Betty?
Thank you.
My question was similar. I was thinking about the dryer vents, and the close-up that you showed them like on top of like a piece of concrete or something.
Yeah,
Is
that was
that
from
the
a
way-
different building. That was
Okay.
a different building. Yeah.
So I really see the vent being sort of this big almost, and then the brick almost close right around it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
Here's
thank
that
you.
image just for reference again.
Yeah,
So no back
Right.
panel or anything like that. They're set into the brick.
got
You
it.
know, it's a 4-inch hole and then it goes over.
Thank you.
So,
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Are there other questions? Yes? I think if there are no other questions, do I have a motion to grant a certificate of approval?
I so move.
Thank you, Betty. Do I have a second? Thank you, Greta. All right, is there more discussion before we vote? Greta? You're muted.
Sorry, I think the granite boxes are a really nice solution to that problem, that the granite box. is a
Thank you.
nice
I'll
solution.
let you know how it works out next year.
Yeah. It seems to fit really well, and I guess you could sit on it too.
All right, then I think we'll move to a vote. Nicole?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Greta?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And I also approve it. So thank you for your presentation and for coming to our meeting. We are granting you an approval of appropriateness and for your project.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Sure.
So now we move to the next section of the public meeting, which are updates from our town planning staff. And this was to discuss and finalize language for updating the parking regulations in the LHDC.
From what I was told by Jacinta, this is still under review by staff, so there's nothing more to report. Unless Nate, looks like Nate's got his hand raised, so see if he has anything more to say.
Nate?
Yeah, excuse me. Hi, everyone. No, not much more to say. We had talked about defining a parking area,
Yes.
whether there's a surface and a number of spaces, and then defining it as a structure. And then further in the bylaw, we have a place where it says, terraces, walkways, driveways, sidewalks, and similar structures, provided they're at grade, are excluded from review. And we could say something as simply as this exclusion does not apply to parking areas. I think, I guess staff's trouble has been, how visible is a surface parking lot if it's behind a house or it's set back 80 feet from the road. And so, if it's in the front yard, it's visible. I guess some of it would be how visible is an at-grade parking area if it's further back on a property. And so, a local historic district doesn't regulate use. It's really the aesthetic and appearance. And so, we're just, some communities in this exclusion, we say terraces, walks substantially at grade are excluded. They don't have that exclusion at all. So essentially anything that's not at grade, or if it's at grade and it's visible, it's reviewed. I just would want to make sure we're clear on like what's the visibility of it? Like how visible is something really that's at grade? And so that's kind of the question, right? So, when I did some research, there's some communities that clearly say no parking in the front, or it's regulated and they say no, but if it's behind a home, you can't really see it. And so that's kind of the best solution is to put the parking behind a structure.
And then the cars are what falls under use.
Right.
So, because it's not, I guess the issue is that it's not ever going to be empty at grade.
Right, but the cars are the use, which is not right. That's kind of the tricky part. So, if someone were to come in and want to put, in our zoning bylaw, we regulate parking in some respects too. So, but if someone were to come in and didn't need any other land use permit in a local historic district right now, and they wanted to put parking in their front yard, we couldn't, a local historic district couldn't regulate it. If we changed the bylaw, we could. But then say, like I said, if it's behind a building, is it really that visible? They could put plantings or a fence and then it's not visible at all. And so I just want to make sure we're not regulating the use, but it's the aesthetic of the parking surface itself.
Steve?
Yeah, I have several comments. First of all, in the actual bylaws as Historic District Commission, all those need to be changed to local historic district commissions. Do you see what I'm, like under A, every mention is not a historical local historic commission, it's a historic district commission. So that needs to be corrected. In purpose, I was wondering if we could add language. Christine used to do this in terms of like the only purpose for an LHD is the actual building. And if you look in the handbook, I'd like to have some language that just includes that the purpose of an LHD is improve the quality of life for those living there, providing stability, pride in the neighborhood, a visual sense of the past, and a peace of mind that historic built environment will remain. I'd like to broaden that a little bit. And then the purpose of this bylaw is to make it explicit that the parking is within the LHDC purview. And Nicole's much better at this, but I could only see two. I see parking area on page 2, in which it's defined as 5 or more spaces. Why shouldn't it be 4? Why is it 5?
Yeah.
Number 1, number 2, before we go on, then the only other mention of parking I see is on page 4 under exclusions, or maybe it's page 70. Okay, under exclusions J, there's kind of a widow. Under B, it says terraces, walks, driveways, sidewalks, similar structures, provided that the structure is substantially at grade level. The exclusion does not apply to parking areas. So that's kind of, is it, so the exclusion doesn't apply to parking areas as written, or it does? I'm kind of confused.
So yeah, I think the first one is we're, coming up with a definition of a parking area. So right, again, it can't be just parking because that's a use. So it's the parking area, which becomes a defined term. It says, an impervious surface within the property designed to accommodate a total cumulative number of 5 or more parking spaces. Parking areas do not include the access drive or other areas not designed for parking spaces. The commission could say 4 or more. I think the difficulty is at 5 or more, it coincides with what we have in our zoning bylaw to require a type of permit. And so typically a homeowner does not need any permit to put in a few parking spaces on a property. So, I could just go in and pave a bit of my front yard or side yard today to add parking, and there's no permit necessary. There's no building permit, no DPW permit. And so there's really no way to track that. But if you're adding actually 5 or more spaces, you're supposed to then get a permit. And so I think some of it is the difficulty of actually enforcing it.
Yeah, no, I was looking at Article 7. I mean, this is all above me. 2 or more parking spaces for each dwelling unit. And where does it say that the parking, the way it's written, it explicitly says parking is not excluded. So maybe I'm missing something, but where does it actually say that parking is included as among?
Well, so then we define parking in structures too. We say structure means a combination of materials other than a building, including a sign, fence, wall.
I'm sorry, where's that?
Back up in the definitions. So it'd be like, it's page 74 of the general bylaw, but it's really page 2 of the bylaw.
Parking areas means improved impervious surface.
So then it's like, it's 3, it's just, the structure is just, 2 definitions below the parking area. So we just add parking area to the definition of a structure. So now it's regulated as a structure. And the exclusion doesn't apply because the exclusion is saying that the bylaw doesn't regulate these types of things at grade, but we're saying the parking areas aren't part of the exclusion. So now they are.
So this exclusion does not apply to parking, and that's under J.
Yeah.
Okay, so it means so that's what you added, and that makes it explicit that it does cover parking.
Right.
Okay. Do you mind adding, it's just always been a pet peeve of mine in terms of purpose, adding some language that just it's not about encouraging, the actual buildings, because it's, an LHD the purpose of an LHD is much more broad than that.
Do you have this? I can send this in a Word document, and Steve or anyone else wants to, if they want to put track changes in,
okay,
we can then consolidate it, because I do think
it's just a little thing for me because it's not just about the buildings. So anyway, okay.
Yeah, because I think there's a few other parts of the bylaw too. If we're going through it, I agree. There's probably some things, Steve, that you mentioned about what we call it. There's some consistencies that need to be updated, so we could do it all as one kind of bylaw update.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else has any other questions about that, or I just want to make sure that we're clear that it's, we can't regulate the use, and so that's what kind of, staff's. We just want to make sure that the commission wouldn't be doing that, because that crosses the line from what the authority of the commission. And so, if someone is proposing a 20-car parking lot behind their house or in the district, if it's visible, then it's regulated. But if it's not, then we can't mention that, oh well, all the cars will be parked there. And so it's really just about this, hardscape surface that's changing the appearance of the district.
If it's visible from a public way, that's
Yes,
the,
yeah.
that, okay.
Yeah, I like the idea if you're providing a Word doc that we can comment on. That'd be great.
All right.
Thank you. So we're not ready to vote to approve any language because it's not finalized yet.
Right.
Are we ready then to move on to the update on the East Amherst study, or is there more to discuss about the parking regulations?
I think that's good. We can talk about the parking and the other bylaw updates at another meeting. And I know Chris Skelly, I think, had been in the audience, and he can speak to East Amherst.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to the update on the East Amherst study. And Chris, welcome to the commission. Thank you for your work on behalf of our East Amherst local historic district that we hope to create. Let's hear what you have to tell us.
All right. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right. Yeah, so happy to be here. Been working on this for months, so great to finally give you an update on where things are at. It's been a really interesting project for me. Busy working on all of the inventory forms mostly. So that's the bulk of the work under this contract, was putting together the inventory forms. So the inventory forms, I mean, the two big parts of the putting together the inventory form are the architectural description and the historical narrative. And then the bigger one of those two would be the historical narrative. So that's basically doing the research on the properties. I spent hours and hours and hours on the Registry of Deeds website, so tracking down whatever deeds I can. And sometimes that goes really well. I've been able to go back and in some cases, I've been able to get right back to the 1840, 1850 with the deeds and just have this amazing chain of title. It's especially true if it's a family that owned the property for 100-something years, which is true on some of the properties here. Other properties, it's a lot harder to track down the deeds. They just don't. With subdivisions taking place and selling a portion here, selling a portion there, it's a lot harder to get back further. But I've done what I can for all the deeds. And then there's lots of other sources that I use for doing the historical narratives, whether it's ancestry.com, where there's a number of other sites right now that can really provide me some great information on the historical background of the properties. And then your special collections at Jones Library I've been there quite a few afternoons doing more research on the properties there. There's a few properties that they actually had a file on them, but they also just have lots of resource materials to put together the narratives. So at this point, I would say the forms are in pretty good shape. There's still a little bit more to do on them, but they are largely done. And I think next steps, which I'm kind of glad I'm meeting with you now, just to talk about some of the next steps, is to think about more of that study report. I have started working on that significant section. So the contract said, I think it was the 3 sections of the study report was the methodology section, the significance section, and the justification of the boundaries. The justification of the boundaries section of that report is pretty easy to put together. So I haven't started that yet, but it's a pretty quick one. The significance section certainly would take a bit longer to put that together. So I'm working on that right now. And then the methodology section, that basically goes through the step-by-step process to explain how you got from the idea of an East Amherst local historic district to where we are right now. That one I'm just going to need help on because I don't know what all of your what your process has been. So I'll need more input in terms of putting that section together. I think there was also something in the contract about the property owner opinion survey. So I wanted to hear compiling data from the property owner opinion survey. So I want to talk more about where that's at. And I'd really like to hear just from you from all of you where your outreach is at with the property owners in East Amherst, because that's certainly an important process to think about. That's basically where I'm at. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but that's basically where the project is at right now.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I've seen, you showed me what you've done. It's actually incredible. It's, you know, even if the LHD doesn't happen, it's going to be an amazing resource for the town. A couple things. So we're sticking to the National Registry boundaries. Did you, we talked about whether you were going to look at some, you know, because Nate was concerned about that. Did you look at any structures that look like they were of a piece that were adjacent that could be included, or are we just sticking to the National Registry?
So far, I've just stuck with the National Register boundary.
And in terms of the significance, if you're sticking with the National Registry, I think we can just use the significant sections of the National Registry because that's what they did for the Dickinson. And in terms of methodology, I'll do that when the time comes. In terms of outreach, we're kind of doing this backwards. We haven't had any outreach. So that's the next step. And is Nate still around? Is he gone?
No, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I was.
Nate was the one that suggested that we do the outreach after we do the research. So Nate, we're at the point where we have to send those letters out. And then I have two other things because I've done a study report before. Last time I was the clerk as well as the chair, and I did minutes, which have to be included in the study report. And we don't have any minutes, right?
Well, we have recordings of each of the meetings.
Yeah, staff could generate minutes if that's needed.
Why do you need minutes in the study report?
Yeah, last time we had minutes for every single one, so I was just wondering, is that a requirement? Well, I mean, Chris used to be the head of the Massachusetts Historical Commission, so we don't need the minutes?
I'm not aware of that requirement.
Oh, okay. Well, and the other thing is, who are the officers of the LHD subcommittee? Or are we just the same?
It's the same.
Study committee.
It's the same. Yeah, it's just the commission is also the study committee.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, Chris, I was waiting. Skelly, this is Nate.
Nate.
You know, the map we sent, you know, there was, you know, at one point we talked about, you know, would we go further west up Maine or down Shumway or Spalding, but it seems like there was no reason to necessarily do that. And so I think Steve's right. We're at the point now where we, you know, at one point there's been some notices in the paper about this, and we haven't notified the individual property owners yet. So the next thing we would do is send out, you know, the property owner survey and, you know, an informational sheet. And then that would be, you know, help, you know, because now we have the information. So we're pretty solid on the boundary. So I think we're kind of waiting to determine, is this, you know, are we still have the right area, you know, and then if that's the case, we can send out the property owner surveys.
So is that something, Nate, that your staff can do?
Yeah, staff. Yeah, Walker and I would do that. And so I'm not sure, it's about 50 properties.
I think it's like 42 or something like that, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, for the last meeting, Chris sent as a handout an index of all the properties with photographs and thumbnail descriptions. I don't know if we still have that.
Yeah, it's in the packet. I think. Yeah, I was looking at that. I think
It's
a really nice layout.
Yeah.
Yeah, the work is really nice, Chris. It's really interesting to read about all of the different houses. Appreciated it.
Yeah, so if we feel good about those boundaries, we can do that outreach step. I just want to make sure we were at that point, you know, because if we still thought the district could be expanded one way or the other, we would just want to confirm that before we start notifying owners.
Well, Chris and I went down Spalding a couple times, and we just feel like it's of a different era in style. And it certainly deserves to be an LHD, but I would, you know, it's just easier to defend these boundaries.
And these are defended on the basis of age, correct?
Age and style. This is basically when they did the Dickinson LHD, they literally just submitted the National Registry nomination without doing any additional research. So just for expedience sake, I mean, it's a pretty for the Lincoln, we didn't do that. We had to research everything and write everything from scratch. But I just think it's easier to defend these boundaries if it's just for, exactly what the National Registry is.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think for the current district, I mean, most of the homes are, pre-1850, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
there's a few that are older, but I mean newer.
it's a clear case for historical importance, it seems to me.
Absolutely.
Well, this is really excellent. Thank you, Chris, for your work, and we look forward to hearing the next chapter on this. And I guess, Nate, you and Walker will get to work sending those letters out as soon as you have a chance to the neighbors, and let us know if there are any problems that develop as a result of that.
Yeah, so usually after we send that out, we'd have like a public meeting, invite property owners to come, and we, it'd be a meeting of the commission and staff, and we'd be there to help answer questions. If there are any, if there's any major concerns, the guidebook from the state says if there are, then the study report could consider changing the boundaries or understand what the concerns are, and either we could spend more time educating the public or doing more research. But I think some of it was we wanted this research that Chris has done, to help justify this. So, if there are questions about why are we including, say, this property or these few properties, we can say, well, they make sense, right, from an architectural standpoint and from a construction standpoint and kind of from the history of the town. So, I think that's needed. So if we do have those kinds of questions, but right, I think we'll do the surveys and then, like I said, have a meeting probably in early April or in April sometime, maybe.
Right.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Are we ready to move on to the update on the Section 106 review in that case? Walker, are you planning on making that presentation, or is it Nate?
I don't have any update to give, I don't think. So I don't know if Nate does.
Do you
Yeah,
have anything, Nate?
only what's been reported on, if in the paper and in the Indy, that there's still a working group session to try to come to agreement on what's the right process for some of the materials and some of the changes, and what's a good mitigation. So I think that's still ongoing. So the state had asked to have the roof remain original slate, not synthetic or asphalt shingles. They didn't like the book drop in the front, and there's been some discussions now about the windows and the interior woodwork, saving it and reusing it, or saving it and having the ability to reuse it, and then maybe some interpretive material available in the new library. It sounds like there's still some other questions, and so at this point I'm not sure if it's just between a few consulting parties in the town or all the consulting parties, but it sounds like they're still trying to work through some of the final agreements or conditions of, they're trying to develop a memorandum of understanding or agreement, and they're really trying to finish the conditions on that. And if they do, then a contract could be signed with the contractor to move the project forward to construction.
So we got a letter from Bob Parent on this yesterday or today. It sounded like they were really moving forward with those. It sounded to me like they were ready to finish this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see that letter, but right. So if the town agrees to some of those conditions or all of those, then it could be that this memorandum of agreement is signed pretty quickly.
Yeah, they've agreed to the roof, and they've agreed to the book drop. They've agreed to, well, they're not going to preserve as much of the materials as that we had hoped they would because of the expense of doing that, and the asbestos that was attached to them. That's basically what they said. They are going to fix that pineapple.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, the windows, I think they were still asking to explain or, because at one point there was discussion of replacing the windows and having very similar, almost, I don't want to say total replicas, but very similar new windows. And there was something about that. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
I think that the Historic Commission wanted them to replace those windows.
Yeah, the historical commission thought they would be, based on the presentation they were given, they would be really, there wouldn't be much visible change from the street with the new windows compared to the existing, and they would be getting rid of the storm windows, which were a later addition. So it would be, just the windows. But I think Mass Historic had some issues with that. But I'm not sure where that is.
Betty?
One of the things that I had advocated for was the return of the shutters to the front of the building. So those were integral to the 1928 facade, and they had been there for quite a number of years. And I felt that if they were going to do so much work to the back of the building, they could at least restore the front to its original appearance so that it kept its domestic scale and appearance. Those were taken off some years ago simply for maintenance reasons, I believe. So I had suggested that several times, and I don't think anybody's picked up on it. And I wondered how this group felt about it, because they are a main feature of the facade of the building. They exist on the front and on the sides that you see from on the original massing.
I'd love to have the shutters.
Yeah, I like the shutters too.
Do you think they kept the shutters?
I know that I had read in the historic structure report that they had kept one of them. And in that one of them, they could determine the color. So they could do a little paint scraping or analysis and find out what the original color was. It was, my guess is a very dark green, but I don't know that for a fact. So they have it, so they could reproduce them. It's costly, of course, but it's a main feature of the facade. So I like to see it put back.
Elizabeth, do you know why the shutters were there in the first place? Did they actually use them? I mean, I've lived in France and in other parts of Europe, and shutters are regularly used. People open them, at the morning, and they shut them at night. And was that ever a feature of these shutters? Did they ever?
I don't think they were. I have never seen them closed, so I don't know that they were actually used. But I know that the hardware was on the side of them. So I know that often on historic buildings, you keep the hardware on the side so that they look like they could be opened and closed, and that they're the same size as the window. It's not like they're, the modern vinyl ones that are just like they don't look like they ever could meet in the middle if they closed.
That makes I'm incensed by that sort of nonsense. But I can't imagine that the Jones would have perpetrated that kind of stupidity. But I'm just frankly curious about
I don't think so.
Why they were there in the first place.
It's not an American
I think they're
thing to
just,
do.
I mean, it's a decorative feature of a, mid 18th century building.
I think the hardware is still there. You can see it around the windows. Greta?
I actually hate the plastic ones that don't fit the windows, but our building was built by the same architectural firm, and we have shutters that are green, and they do have the hardware, and we closed them. I think it was Hurricane Gloria. But other than that, we haven't, because we've got shades and I don't know. But it is expensive. We maintain ours because we have somebody that fixes the wood for us. So we keep the original, even though they need to be, they're a little worse for the wear 100 years old, but they're the same ones. But we have somebody that works on shutters that helps us, a woodworker. But I can see
the name of him.
Yeah.
I have the same architect that you guys have, yeah.
Yeah,
Same
same
shutters,
architect, Putnam.
Putnam, younger Putnam, the younger.
The younger Putnam.
Yeah.
Putnam. And I think the elder did the Jones Library.
Yeah.
So would the local historic district commission like to add a memo or point of information that they think the shutters ought to be replaced, or do you just want to let it go? I'm sorry, that's my dog.
you want to make a motion, Betty?
Sure. Yeah, I move that the local historic commission endorse the idea of returning the shutters to the front of the Jones Library, to the core of the Jones Library.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there more discussion before we vote? Okay, Bruce?
I'm going to do something I almost never do. I'm going to abstain from this vote because I don't know why they were there, and I don't feel strongly that they need to be replaced.
Okay. Rita?
I vote yes.
Karen?
Yeah, I vote yes. It's a suggestion. I have a feeling that with the costs, we're not getting anywhere, but as a historic, I think it would look better.
It's a statement. Betty?
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
And Steve?
Yes. I mean, how much do they cost? And how many
Shutters are
windows would
very,
they be?
I can tell you
Yeah.
that shutters are very expensive
Yeah.
because we had one that needed to be replaced. And in the end, we just repaired the old shutter because a
Yeah.
replacement it ran into thousands of dollars per shutter.
Wow.
Greta?
I actually think the Jones looks gorgeous the way it is. Sometimes I wish they wouldn't use it to hang all the flags, but just the outside looks gorgeous. So if they didn't have the funds, I might personally rather the funds be used for saving woodwork, but I'm not against it at all, and I'd like to look into it. They might be in the basement someplace, which is where often people store old shutters.
Well, maybe we could send a note saying that we would expressing our interest in the shutters if it's possible. Karen?
Yeah, I have a feeling that there is absolutely no, I mean, this is our way of asking for something really expensive when there are so many things that we care so much about that are on the scale. So
Although it is our job as local historic district to look for the history, and that would be my argument for it. So,
I think you frame it as a suggestion that that we would have interest in preserving them, that we would vote in favor of this if it's at all possible.
Well, I don't
Okay.
think that wasn't the motion.
Oh.
I think I'm coming at it from the point of view, it doesn't matter whether we like them or not, or whether we think it looks good with them or without them. If it was a salient feature of the exterior of the building in the year it was built, and this is a restoration project, then I think you should have planned for them from the beginning.
Mm.
I can withdraw the motion if you want.
No.
I was just trying to go from what the building is. I mean, what the building says, and if that's, the shutters are integral to the domestic design of, a big old Connecticut Valley house is the main point of what it was supposed to look like, then, and if that's a feature of it, then why wouldn't you put it back?
Nate?
Sure, yeah, I think, the idea would be if the motion passes, it's it would be a memo or an email, you can say a letter to Bob Parent, and, to say that it's something that could be considered. And I think the local historic district commission, you're considered a consulting party, right?
Yes.
And so I think it could, come in that kind of context that it's been, Betty's mentioned, it's been mentioned before, and so that it's something the commission discussed again, and thinks that, think if the motion passes, right, say, something as like it's an architectural feature from the time it was constructed, and they could be put back as part of the restoration project. And it could be as simple as that. It doesn't, whether or not there's funding, it's just kind of making that statement, if that's kind of the way you want to frame it and have the motion.
Okay.
Greta?
Steve?
Yeah, maybe you can change the language from endorse to recommend. That and I would be up for, is there any way to do a fundraising effort, for something as specific as shutter, putting the shutters? Because, there's something I would contribute to that if it was that specific. Anyway, that's just.
Oh,
Here's a picture. I
Rita.
think they look gorgeous, and I like the lights
Yeah.
fixture in front too.
Yeah,
The light fixture they use, that's really pretty.
yeah.
So I take it back. I think the building looks gorgeous now, but it looked even better then.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Bruce?
And we
Well,
could put
the
that thing up too.
Want to clarify the motion then, because the picture that Greta showed was has the shutters most apparent on the east side. So was the motion to restore them on the front, or was it to
No,
restore them?
I would say that I think I rephrased it to say the core of the building where they originally were. So they were on the south sides, not the front, and then the east and the west. They're right on that core.
So the motion is for the for those three facades.
Yes,
Just wanted to be
where they
sure on that.
originally were. Mhm.
I'm still going to abstain, but I wanted to make sure everybody was voting on the same understanding.
I like the car too. Yeah, I think they look, when I Googled the Jones Library historic photos, they're beautiful. Here it is without it.
It's just much more
It's not the
interesting
same.
with it. Yeah.
And I
will-
don't like the new streetlight as much, but
I will write something up as a memo and I'll share it with everyone before I send it to Bob Parent to make sure that we are all agreed on what we're saying.
Thank you.
Are there any unanticipated items that have come up that we need to discuss? Then I think we've come to the end of our agenda and we're ready to, we do have, no, we don't have any other attendees. I think we're ready to, wait, Steve Roof from Hampshire College is here. Is there any public comment? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Do we want to set a date for the next one or?
Oh, yes, we should
Yeah.
set a date for the next one. I think someone had recommended the end of March. It's a possible date.
March 24th written down.
Yeah, March 24th
Works for me.
at 3 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay.
works for
Okay.
me. March when?
24th.
24th, okay. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
We do.
This is always Bruce's job.
No, it was moved by Elizabeth, I think, and I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. Nate, thank you for coming. Walker, thank you for being with us now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you,
And
Chris,
thanks for
for
your work.
everything
Thank you,
you're
Chris.
working on.
Yeah, Chris, really appreciate your work.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.